Hello and welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show we round up all the biggest stories in Formula 1 right now. We are currently in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend, but which stories have been making the headlines this week? This week, Frederic Vasseur has said that Ferrari has underestimated the impact of signing Sir Lewis Hamilton this season. Hamilton has also backed Cadillac Racing for success when they join the sport next year, and we bring you all of the action and highlights from an incredibly chaotic Azerbaijan Grand Prix qualifying session. Do not miss that at the end of this show. If you're watching on YouTube, skip to the timestamps in the video description to watch the stories that you're most interested in. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Interesting interview that Frederic Vasseur, the team principal of Ferrari, has given with regards to Sir Lewis Hamilton, saying that he underestimates the factors and the circumstances around bringing Formula One's most successful driver to Formula One's most successful team. Let's have a look, guys. What did he underestimate? What has surprised him about having Sir Lewis Hamilton in red this year and beyond? Well, the important thing for everybody associated with Ferrari is that Frederic Vasseur does believe that Sir Lewis Hamilton's form will return. Of course, it's been a pretty mixed bag, to say the very least, in 2025, and really hit a low point just before the summer break at the Hungarian Grand Prix, when Hamilton had no qualms about admitting that the team should look to somebody else to drive the car in the near future. He was not the right man, basically, for Ferrari, at least in his eyes. Now, of course, level heads did eventually prevail. Hamilton came back after the summer break, and in truth, at the Italian Grand Prix, did all right. He did all right. I mean, yeah, the Dutch Grand Prix was pretty bad. Let's not talk about that. But he did pretty good at Ferrari's home race at Monza. Vasseur said on Formula One's Beyond the Grid podcast the following, quote, "I don't know if we underestimated the importance of the change, probably because he spent 10 years at McLaren, then 12 with Mercedes, but it kind of has continuity. Two teams based in the UK with the same engine, same environment. Joining Ferrari is a complete change for him in his life, the culture of the team and everything. To do it in 3 test days and the winter period is quite difficult, and I think also that the expectation was huge for Ferrari in 2025. We have had to put everything in place, and it's taken time. We have to also manage the expectations and manage the noise around the team." End quote. And of course, when it comes to Ferrari in Italy, there is always an absolute chorus of noise coming from the press and the fans. It is a non-stop racket, to say the very least. Vasseur also defended Hamilton's performance as well, saying, quote, "The comments about performances are positive or negative for plus or minus 1/10 of a second, or plus or minus a click of front wing that you did or not. It's always marginal. If we are not able to put everything together from the preparation of the weekend, the adaptation of the simulator, blah, 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 until Sunday, you can miss 1/10 here or 1/10 there. This is making a huge difference in terms of pure results." End quote. Of course, the grid in Formula 1 these days is the tightest it's ever been. The top 10 in the Hungarian Grand Prix Q3 qualifying session was the closest in a top 10 in the history of the sport. So 1/10 really can make the difference between making it through to Q2, for example, and being at the back of the grid. Well, maybe not the back of the grid. Alpine are usually back there, near the back of the grid anyway. And Vasseur says that any kind of struggles that Hamilton's been having so far this season is not the fault of him, it is the fault of the team. Saying, quote, "It's up to us to support him when he is struggling, and also we need to push him when he's struggling. Spa and Budapest were difficult for him." I can say that again. But he can be sure that he has the full support of everyone in Maranello to recover, to be back. I'm really convinced that he will do it. We have to be supportive with him every single day, and I will be very supportive every single day with Lewis. It's a matter of support and mentality. He's fully committed. He's pushing like hell. He's trying to get the best from everybody, and he will always have my support for this. He's a champion. He's doing very well, and he has the pace. The other characteristic is to try and get the best from the people around you, extra motivation and extra push. For sure, this characteristic is there. And of course, Fred Vasseur and Hamilton go back like 20 years, back to his GP2 days. You know, he used to race for Vasseur's team at the time, so they know each other very well at the end of the day. So, You know, when it comes to Hamilton, you would like to think that Fred Vasseur would very much have his back when it comes to this. But of course, the cynics will always say that he is very much on the charm offensive there, trying to butter Hamilton up, trying to make him feel good because they've spent so much money on him and they don't want to lose out, when in reality, they're quite disappointed with him. I've heard both points of view, and honestly, I do understand both points of view. But at the end of the day, Hamilton didn't win over 100 Formula 1 races by accident. He is one of the best drivers in the history of the sport. That is a fact. Is he still quick as he used to be, though? He's 40 years of age now. That's more debatable. But let's talk about it in the comments, guys. Never underestimate fan power. Back in the days of Nigel Mansell driving the British Grand Prix, he used to say that the Silverstone crowd used to give him a couple attempts every single lap, and that has been true of certain drivers over there over the years as well, not least of course Sir Lewis Hamilton. But now he's got 2 home races, 3 home races in a sense you might say, or at least this year anyway, because Imola is still on the calendar, although of course it leaves next year. His second home race though being that at Monza, the Italian Grand Prix. It'll very much feel like a home race. I mean, I brought you the story the other day going over Hamilton saying that, you know, it was a dream come true. It was everything that he ever hoped for when it came to driving at Monza as a Ferrari driver, and I don't blame him either. It was a much better weekend on the whole for him. He was competitive. He wasn't far behind Charles Leclerc in qualifying nor the race, and that being despite a 5-place grid penalty that made him start all the way down in P10. He very much recovered. He's in a much better place mentally now, and his team principal Frederic Vasseur has also praised the home crowd for giving their 7-time champion a boost. Let's have a look at the full story here, guys, on the F1Chronicle.com. As always, Ferrari team principal Frederic Vasseur has praised the role of the Tifosi in lifting Lewis Hamilton across the Italian Grand Prix weekend, saying their energy was something very special for the 7-time world champion. Monza marked Hamilton's first home race as a Ferrari driver, and fans greeted him with enthusiasm at every opportunity. The Scuderia hosted events in Milan before the weekend began, and by the time of the drivers arriving at the circuit, Hamilton was already the centre of attention. Vasseur said the following on this, quote, "I think the energy that he received from the Tifosi Wednesday, Thursday in Milan was something very special for him. I don't know if it was expected from him, or I don't know what he was expecting from this, but it was something mega, and I think this gave him an extra boost all over the weekend." Even tonight, when he went to the fans to say hello and the Tifosi was something mega. I don't know if you underestimate this or not, that we didn't discuss too much about this, but I think, and even for me, each time that I'm going to be there, I'm surprised. We didn't do the race of our life. We were expecting to be at least on the podium. We are not, but they are still there. They are still enthusiastic, still pushing, and that is why I'm a bit disappointed that we were not able to give them a podium this weekend. But I'm really convinced that it's part of the energy into the team and the positive energy around Lewis this weekend. End quote. I said as well, just after my last video, or during the end of that one I should say, that Hamilton really needs love, he really needs affection to thrive, and he definitely got a lot of that during this weekend, and I don't think that is a coincidence with his performance really. I'm expecting more big things for him in a couple of weeks at Baku. I think this has given him a real boost to get him across the line this season, for lack of a better term. Ferrari showed strong pace early on, with Hamilton fastest in FP1 and Leclerc close to the front throughout practice. In qualifying, Leclerc was in contention for the front row but missed out at the final hurdle. On race day, both drivers were competitive but unable to match the podium finishers. Leclerc provided wheel-to-wheel entertainment in a battle with Oscar Piastri on his way to 4th, while Hamilton charged back from his grid penalty, making up 4 positions to take 6th behind George Russell. Vasseur went on to explain, quote, "We had to serve the penalty, and we knew from the beginning of the weekend that with +5, it's not an easy one. But Hamilton came behind Russell, and the pace was there from the first lap of FP1 to the last lap of the race. Honestly, I think it started in Zandvoort last week. It's difficult to say because the outcome of the weekend was not positive for him. Or Ferrari, double retirement, it was a shocker. But at the end of the day, the pace was better from the beginning compared to Charles. The mood was better. During the race, he was fighting with Russell until lap 30. That means that he was back in a better position." End quote. Hamilton's 6th place at Monza was his best Grand Prix since Silverstone, where he finished 4th, and it ended a run of 2 races without points. He has yet to stand on the podium in a Grand Prix this season, but Vasseur believes it's only a matter of time. Hamilton was able to fight with Russell in Zandvoort to come back from P10 to the gearbox of Russell today. Russell was a couple of times on the podium, so yes, we can expect him to be on the podium. I mean, that has got to be his absolute minimum aim, getting a podium. I mean, Hamilton's got a long time without a win. It's been over a year now. Since Belgium 2024. I think that is still his most recent win in the sport, if you don't count the Chinese sprint, which I do not because it's not a Grand Prix. But guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below about Hamilton. Are you expecting an uptick in performance from him in the remaining rounds this season? I think we've got 8 races left now in the conclusion to this season. After a long wait, we now know who is going to drive for the Cadillac Formula 1 team when they make their debut in the series next year. None other than Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Checo Perez, who are both back in Formula 1. Both back in Formula 1 after being ousted by their respective teams at the end of the 2024 season. They did not leave on their own terms, but they're going to be back, forming a very experienced partnership at the new team. And a certain Sir Lewis Hamilton is very impressed by this, saying that Cadillac are hiring the right guys, and when it comes to having 2 experienced, solid Formula 1 drivers, a team like Cadillac can't really do much better than Bottas and Perez, both of them being very experienced in top teams during their time at Mercedes and also Red Bull respectively. But let's have a look at what the 7-time world champion has been saying here on the F1Chronicle.com as always, guys. Lewis Hamilton has welcomed Cadillac's choice of Bottas and Perez for its maiden Formula 1 season next year, saying that the team has chosen the right guys to spearhead its entry. The announcement confirms the return of both Bottas and Perez after a year out of racing in 2025. Between them, the pair have a combined 527 Grand Prix starts and 16 victories, making them one of the most experienced lineups on the grid. Hamilton, who partnered Bottas at Mercedes between 2017 and 2021, spoke warmly about his former teammate, saying, quote, "I don't need to say anything about his talent because he's shown that throughout his career. But Cadillac are getting one of the most honest, probably the funniest Finns, and just the most genuine person to work with. I miss working with him." End quote. If anybody's seen Bottas' social media posts, they're actually quite funny. I do like them. And of course, when Hamilton did a lie detector test a few years ago for Sky Sports F1, he did say that Bottas was his favourite teammate in Formula 1. No surprises for guessing that Fernando Alonso was nowhere near that. The 7-time world champion also pointed to the value of Perez as well, saying, quote, "Obviously we'll see with Sergio as well. He's got great experience. That knowledge that they both bring from 2 great teams will help them progress faster." End quote. Hamilton believes Cadillac's decision to opt for season campaigners is the right one for a brand new operation, saying, quote, "And I think for a team to be able to develop, you have to have drivers who have experience, especially when it's a brand new team. You've got 2 different flavours coming from Red Bull and Mercedes with different knowledge and experience, and help the team move forward faster." End quote. The Cadillac project, which will run in partnership with Andretti, has been one of the most anticipated additions to the sport in recent years. With Bottas and Perez confirmed, the American team will be banking on their experience to accelerate its learning curve when it joins the grid next year. Yeah, I mean, they always said that they wanted to get someone who was experienced in F1 and also a rookie in Formula 1, someone who was experienced in IndyCar, but the IndyCar opportunity just wasn't there. So to go for 2 guys that are very experienced in Formula 1, I think is a very wise move. But guys, how will Cadillac get on next year? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's a clean slate for everybody, so it's a big opportunity for the new American team. So McLaren, they're doing rather well this season, it is fair to say. They are absolutely walking it this campaign, and they will win the Constructors' Championship. That I have absolutely no doubt about. Now, I remember after the summer break finished before the Dutch Grand Prix, that in commentary, while they were running 1-2 before Lando Norris's engine packed up, or should I say there was an oil leak technically, but either way, he retired because of a mechanical fault. But while Piastri and Norris were 1-2 in that race, The commentator David Croft on the Sky commentary did say that they could win the Constructors' Championship as soon as Baku, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and guess what's coming up this weekend? The Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Now, of course, they didn't manage to win in Italy, but they still scored big by getting 2nd and 3rd place. And that has put them in a position where they can win the Constructors' Championship with a staggering 7 races still to go. Almost a third of the season, which is absolutely incredible, really, when you think about it. But to do so, they have to rely on a bit of luck from Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull. They have to basically hope for relatively poor weekends from those 3 teams, but it is still possible. And if it doesn't happen this weekend in Baku, it will happen in a couple weeks' time for the Singapore Grand Prix. I have no doubt about that. But here is how McLaren could win the Constructors' Championship this weekend for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Full article on the F1Chronicle.com as always, guys. So McLaren currently have a 337-point advantage over Ferrari in 2nd place in the Constructors. After this weekend, there will be a potential 346 points on offer to all the teams in the remaining 7 rounds of the season, which of course includes the sprint weekends as well. In the event of a tiebreaker, McLaren will win the Constructors' Championship because they've already won the majority of the Grand Prix, so it doesn't matter if Ferrari win every single race for the remainder of the season, and given the fact they haven't won a single race this season, that's probably not going to happen. But even if they did, a tiebreaker would still go in the favour of McLaren. So effectively, if McLaren get a 346-point lead over Ferrari, over Mercedes, and over Red Bull, they will win the Constructors' Championship before the Singapore Grand Prix. And here is what they have to do. They have to hope that they are not outscored by Mercedes or Red Bull this weekend coming up. Mercedes, if they score 12 more points than McLaren this weekend, they will still be in the Constructors' hunt heading into Singapore. Red Bull, they have to score 33 points more than McLaren, which is incredibly unlikely given the fact that there is only 43 points up for offer in total. So they have to hope for like a double retirement for McLaren and Max Verstappen to win the race. With Yuki Tsunoda, what would he have to be? He'd have to be at least 5th. It's not happening, lads. I think Red Bull are going to be out officially after this weekend, come what may, to be honest. But Ferrari are the interesting one. McLaren have to outscore Ferrari by at least 9 points this weekend. It's not only enough to stay ahead of them, they have to outscore them by 9 points. Now, interestingly, if McLaren therefore get a 1-2 finish at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, which given their form before the summer break in particular is definitely possible, they'll win the Constructors' Championship come what may, because they will outscore Mercedes, they will outscore Red Bull, and they will outscore Ferrari by way over 9 points in that situation. Specifically, I think that would mean that they would outscore them by 18 points off the top of my head, so they would be way ahead at that point. Specifically, if they did achieve a 1-2 finish, McLaren and Ferrari were 3rd and 4th, which is the best they could do in that situation, that would mean there would be a 16-point swing in the favour of McLaren, which is way over the 9 that is required. And given McLaren's form, it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. I think Mercedes and Red Bull realistically are going to be out after this. Ferrari, though, you never know. They could pull off some kind of miracle, but they would have to win the race, probably. They'd probably have to win the race, or at least get like a double podium or something in. Yeah, Hamilton's not had a single podium this year in a Grand Prix. Leclerc, of course, you know, he's had some good results here and there, but, you know, the odd podium occasionally, it is extremely unlikely. So realistically, guys, even though it's possible for the other constructors to still catch McLaren, it's probably not going to happen. I mean, there is an outside chance Ferrari might do it. They might be able to keep it going to Singapore, but no, I think that's pretty unrealistic, to be honest. But guys, let me know your feelings about this in the comments below. So I was saying in the build up to this Grand Prix that you can never predict what's going to happen during the Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend, because it's absolutely unpredictable. You know, this track really does throw up so many surprises. It is so unpredictable. It is so difficult as well. And when you sprinkle a little bit of rain in there as well, you have the potential for absolute insanity. And that is exactly what we got today on Saturday for qualifying. A record-breaking qualifying session in quite a few different ways. And of course, a very shaken up order as well. This is absolutely pivotal in the championship battle. That cannot be under. This qualifying session absolutely sets us up for an incredible Grand Prix tomorrow, and it's going to be a Grand Prix as well that is going to be huge for the championship. It cannot be overstated how massive this is going to be potentially. Why? Well, I'll explain why in the 5 things that we learned from the Azerbaijan Grand Prix qualifying. So, like I said in the intro there, this was very much a record-breaking qualifying. We didn't have 1, 2, 3. No, we had 6 red flags in qualifying. Qualifying normally takes an hour. This took over 2 hours to complete because everybody was crashing out. It was absolutely incredible. Franco, Colapinto, Pierre Gasly, Ollie Behrman, Nico Hülkenberg, Charles Leclerc, and most significantly of all, Oscar Piastri, all either had really big wide moments or crashed out during the sessions to bring out the red flags. As soon as anybody crashes out during the qualifying for this track, a red flag is flown straight away because of the lack of visibility when it comes to these corners and also the tightness of a lot of these corners as well. You have to throw red flags. So we got 6 in total, breaking the all-time record in this regard. But yeah, unbelievably, Oscar Piastri out early in Q3. Could Lando Norris take advantage of this? Well, sort of. We'll explain why. Also, shout out, or a bit of a dishonourable mention, I guess, to Alex Albon. He was the first of everybody to crash out. Didn't bring out the red flags, but he turned into turn 1 and nicked his front left wheel and broke his suspension. He was out early because of that as well. Not a good qualifying session for that Williams, but for the other Williams, well, we'll talk about him soon. Something that was revealed about 2-3 hours after qualifying, Esteban Ocon was disqualified from qualifying. The reason for this is because his wing failed the deflection test. Basically, when it comes to the stiffness of these wings, they have to be able to withstand a certain load on a certain part of their wing. If they deflect, if they move too much, your wing is therefore illegal in the eyes of the FIA. They tested Ocon's front wing on his Haas and he was disqualified. Doesn't really change too much for him, to be honest. He was down in P18 anyway, so he's going to start P20, or to be honest, more likely probably from the pit lane. I imagine Haas are going to elect to start him from the pit lane instead. But I mentioned Albon. He didn't have a good time in the Williams today. Carlos Sainz, though, his teammate, did have a good time. He nearly got pole position. He made it through to the top 10, and he was one of the few drivers to set a lap before Oscar Piastri had his crash at the penultimate braking zone on the track. Therefore, he got a lap in on a completely dry track, or at least a track that was drier than what it was later on in the day. He looked like he was going to get pole position, but would he be able to do it? Not quite. P2, front row, incredible effort. Shout out to Liam Lawson as well, by the way, in the RB. 3rd place for him, sensational. But yeah, I posed the question before, could Lando Norris take advantage of Oscar Piastri failing to finish Q3? Yes, but also no. In the end, Piastri classified down in P9 ahead of Charles Leclerc, who also crashed out during Q3. But Lando Norris couldn't really improve that much on his time. He only got into P7 during the Q3 session. He almost put it into the same wall that Oscar Piastri did as well. But he just about managed to keep his car going, but unfortunately for him, it did cost him time on his lap. So Lando Norris lines up P7, Piastri in P9. The worst qualifying of the season by far for McLaren. It is wide open at the front of the grid. Hell, even Yuki Tsunoda, he qualified ahead of Norris. He was up in P6, Antonelli P4, George Russell P5, but P1 for number 1. Max Verstappen. He set yet another unbelievable qualifying lap. I think he was about 6/10 ahead of Carlos Sainz. Of course, that Red Bull is at least probably 6/10 faster than that Williams, but he did it on a much wetter track. Nobody else could improve. Nobody else could do better on those final runs, except for Max. He has an absolute 6th sense of where the grip is going to be before he goes into a corner. He's like Ayrton Senna in that kind of regard. And I know this was obviously not the most extreme conditions, but obviously to set a lap like that while the track was wet and nobody else could do it on dry tyres. Nobody else could do it, but he could. I mean, that just says something about the guy, doesn't it? You know, it really, really does. Honestly, he's got to be the favourite to win tomorrow. He has to be. With the McLaren so far down, and with how good Red Bull were, how good Verstappen was in that Red Bull last time out in Italy, he's got to be the strong favourite for tomorrow. Of course, 12 months ago, Verstappen was miles off it around this track. Just would not agree with him for whatever reason. But on this day in history, in the year of our Lord 2025, he's done it again. He's done it again. If I had a hat, I would take it off to you, sir. Absolutely incredible stuff. But yeah, there we go. I mean, there's so much to take away from this qualifying. Like I said, 2-hour qualifying session. I've tried to sum it up as briefly as I can. Unbelievable. We've got a hell of a Grand Prix on tomorrow. But yeah, those in the comments below, guys. So if you saw my review for qualifying for the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, you'll know how absolutely chaotic it was. 6 red flags in total and some real shock results up and down the grid. But something that wasn't overly surprising was the fact that Esteban Ocon was absolutely nowhere in the Haas. And in the other Haas car as well, Ollie Behrman crashed out too. So it was not a great day for Haas overall. And it got a whole lot worse after qualifying concluded as well, because it has come out since then that Esteban Ocon has been disqualified from qualifying. He's been thrown out. Now, again, if you saw my review, you'd know why. And the reason why is because of a technical infringement found on his number 31 car. But what exactly was the issue with the car? Well, here's the full explanation, guys. Formula1.com putting out their own article here. I was just going to quickly go through. It's a relatively simple reason, and it's not unique to Ocon. This has happened a lot throughout the history of Formula 1, but he's just the latest victim of it. Esteban Ocon has been disqualified from Saturday's qualifying session for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix after it was deemed that his Haas car had breached Formula 1's technical regulations. After dropping out in the first after Q1 in 18th position, Ocon and Haas were summoned to see the stewards over an alleged breach of Article 3.15.17 of the FIA technical regulations, which relates to the rear wing mainplate tip deflection test. According to a note issued by FIA F1 technical delegate Joe Bauer, the deflection figures measured on Ocon's rear wing during post-session checks exceeded the allowed deflection of 0.5 millimeters or half a centimeter, whatever you prefer. As is the usual outcome with such a technical violation, a follow-up from the stewards later confirmed that Ocon had been disqualified from the session. Essentially, when it comes to designing a Formula 1 car, you've got so many boundaries, so many figures and tests that you have to pass effectively, and unfortunately, Ocon's car fell foul of this. Formula 1 is always pushing the boundaries, and unfortunately, Ocon and Haas took it a little bit too far. So essentially, when it comes to this as well, I mean, they go into it here, basically, like it says in the regulation before this, you're only allowed to get half a millimeter of deflection in that section, and Ocon measured at 0.6 millimeters on the left side and 0.825 on the right side. So he was over on both sides of the rear wing. Slam dunk, disqualification. They're going to have to change the rear wing, obviously, for the Grand Prix tomorrow. So I imagine that Ocon is probably going to start from the pit lane tomorrow, especially with how likely it is you get a first or second corner crash during the Baku Grand Prix. It does allow them to go for a pure race setup, and it only cost them 2 places. I mean, he qualified in P18 anyway, so he was well down there. He was well down there anyway. But yeah, just a little update for you guys, really, when it comes to that. I thought I'd do a little explainer video why. Essentially, basically, the rear wing is set up in such a way that it is too flexible, it is too light. I mean, around a track like Baku, you want to really limit how much drag your car is producing, and trimming out the rear wing is one way to do that, but unfortunately, Haas took it too far. They trimmed it out a bit too much, unfortunately, for them. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe. As always, have a fantastic day wherever you're on the world today, and we'll see you very soon.